Okay, cool. Hi everyone. Are you guys able to hear me? Just drop a quick yes or no in the chat. Everyone, if I'm audible. How's everyone? How's everyone doing? Okay. Yep, I'm good too. I'm good too. Okay, cool. So, just a minute, guys. Hey, hi, Puneet. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, cool. Let's start, everybody. So, I'll share my screen. Can everybody see my iPad screen? एक्चुएटर अभी हम लोग डिटेल में डिस्कस करेंगे आगे चल के, अभिजीत डोंट वरी. ठीक है. Just give me a second, guys. Just give me a second. I'm coming in a minute. Just a second. Okay, cool. So, let me open IntelliJ. Kaustubh, I have one doubt. For every table in SQL, do we need individual repository and model? I was implementing yesterday code. Enable JP will be used for data and timeline only, right? Yes. For the second question around the enable JP auditing, as far as I know, yes. It must be having a few more properties on the top of it, but for our use case, for accessing the created at and updated at time, we are using that. Second thing, for every table, do you need repositories and model? More or less, yes. We'll talk more about it today. Okay. Can everybody see my Ashish Mandal is just a second, guys. Cool. So somebody is saying Ashish Mandal is leaking the course. भाई लीक करने वाले को तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते. Telegram. So like most of the in most of my batches, this question generally comes up. कि there is a course leak happening, this that. तो एक सिंपल फंडा है मेरा. मैं जनरली उस पर ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं देता हूँ. उसका एक बहुत ही स्पेसिफिक रीजन है. What the thing that I am actually teaching, the things that I'm actually teaching, uh, it is already beyond understandable for below average students who don't want to make effort. There are two type of below average students. One who want to make effort, one who don't want to make an effort. So those who don't want to make an effort, it's already beyond their reach to understand. First thing. Second thing, the content is so much that you can never consume it completely if you're not attending it live. Third thing, how many of you guys have heard about Gucci, Armani, these kind of brands? So last year, last year, I went to Italy for a conference, PyCon Italy, where I gave a talk on gRPC's integration with Python. When I was in Italy, I went to a city named as Milan. It's one of the fashion capitals of the world. Like you will find all the big beauty brands and everything. So what happened was like in the main city center kind of a thing. There were original, you can find Gucci stores, Dior stores, Armani stores, original stores, where price of one product generally starts from minimum 50,000. Like the cheapest product that you will find there might be a belt, probably, or maybe not even that. And then like 2 kilometers on the left or right side somewhere, on the streets, on the streets, people are selling third copy, second copy of the same products in like, in terms of INR, I can like 2000 INR, 5000 INR, things like that. Now, those people who want to buy an original Dior, those people who want to buy an original Armani, will never buy it from the streets. And those people who buy from the streets, when they will wear that, everybody will know that this is not a original Armani. It happens like, let's say you rent a car or you buy a car. जैसे मान लो, जैसे मेरी औकात है फॉर एग्जांपल, समझ लो वैगनआर खरीदने की, एन इंस्टेंस, और मैं खरीद लूं फॉर्च्यूनर, तो लोगों के दो ही कमेंट होंगे, क्या होंगे? या तो किसी ने गिफ्ट करी है या फिर रेंट पे लिया। अगर तुम अपने जो तुम हो उससे ऊपर की चीज अगर तुम कर डालो, है ना, वरना तुम्हारा पाथ दिखता है कि भाई तुमने ये चीज वैगनआर से सीधा फॉर्च्यूनर में जंप लिया, तो तुम्हारा दिखता है कि अच्छा तुमने घर बड़ा कर लिया, तुमने बाहर ही रहना शुरू कर दिया, तुम्हारी जॉब ऐसे क्रेजी लग गई, एंड देन यू मूव्ड ऑन। एकदम से अचानक से तुम्हारे पास फॉर्च्यूनर तो आनी जाएगी, है ना। तो सेम चीज वहां भी होता है कि अगर तुम डियोर का बैग लेके घूमोगे और तुम्हें तुम्हें भी अंदर से पता है और देखने वाले को भी पता है कि तुम अरमानी, डियोर, गुची अफोर्ड ही नहीं कर सकते, कहाँ से लेकर आए हो, तो सबको पता है तुम सड़क से लेकर आए हो। बट जो अफोर्ड कर सकता है, मतलब उसने मेहनत करी है अपनी जिंदगी में या उसके घर वालों ने करी है मेहनत, वो कहीं से भी खरीदे, वो अगर सड़क से भी खरीदेगा तो सबको लगेगा भाई ये कम से कम लाख रुपए का बैग लेके घूम रहा है बंदा, भले ही वो सड़क से लेकर आए। तो मॉरल ऑफ द स्टोरी, देर आर टू मॉरल ऑफ द स्टोरी। फर्स्ट, एज अ content creator where I'm teaching and something, I don't care about the fact that if people are actually pirating the course. Pirate तो Netflix की मूवीज भी हो रही हैं। Netflix अपनी मूवीज पायरेसी रोक तो पा नहीं रहा, हो रही है। बट जिसको Netflix पे ही मूवी देखनी है वो Netflix पे ही मूवी देखता है, ठीक है। अगर वो पायरेसी रोक देंगे ना, तो ऐसा नहीं होगा कि Netflix का मार्केट शेयर कम हो जाएगा, या जो लोग Netflix पे अभी नहीं देखते वो Netflix पे देखने लग जाएंगे ना। जिनको चोरी मक्कारी करनी है वो चोरी मक्कारी ही करते हैं, ठीक है। मतलब वो लीनियत से आता है, वो लीनियत से आता है, पता है ये चीज ना लीनियत से आती है। कि तुमने अगर बचपन से देखा है ना अपने घरों में कि चोरी से काम बन जा रहा है, ये देखो ये यहाँ से चुरा लिया, ये देखो ये वाले काम, तो वो चोरी मक्कारी वाले काम तुम्हारे अंदर आते हैं। एंड नेटफ्लिक्स को उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता। सेम चीज मेरे साथ। आई नो कि जितने भी बच्चे टेलीग्राम से कोर्स डाउनलोड कर रहे हैं वो 10% भी कोर्स कंज्यूम ही नहीं कर सकते। तुम अभी देख लो, तुम किसी स्प्रिंग बूट कोर्स में चले जाओ, अभी तक हम लोग ऑलरेडी इतना डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, उसके आसपास भी अगर कोई पढ़ा रहा होगा ना, मैं उसी दिन कंटेंट डबल कर दूंगा। मोमेंट समबडी, मेरे पास ना अभी तक कोई बच्चा ये कह के नहीं आया कि सर आप ना ये नहीं पढ़ाते, कि आपके में ना कंटेंट कम है। जिस दिन कोई भी बोल देगा मैं कंटेंट एकदम 2x कर दूंगा, मेरे को तो उतना आता ही है, मैं तो काम करता हूँ, छोड़ छाड़ के तो बैठा नहीं हूँ, ठीक है। सेकंड चीज, ये तो वो हो गई बेचने के परस्पेक्टिव से कि भाई मेरे जो जनता है, जिसको खरीदना है वो खरीदेगा ही, जिसको नहीं खरीदना उसका वैसे भी नहीं खरीदना, उसका जिंदगी में कुछ होना भी नहीं। क्योंकि भाई पढ़ने के लिए तो फ्री में भी चीजें अवेलेबल है, तुम्हें पता है ना। यूट्यूब पे तुम जाओगे, यूट्यूब पे मतलब इतनी मेहनत, डाउनलोड, इतना बैंडविड्थ क्यों खर्च करनी है, यूट्यूब पे जाके फ्री में पढ़ लो ना। इट्स लाइक दैट। बट जिसने नहीं पढ़ना उसने नहीं पढ़ना। दूसरी चीज, तुम कभी वो चीज अचीव ही नहीं कर पाओगे जो तुम्हारे लिए बनी नहीं है। क्योंकि जो तुम्हारे लिए चीज बनी होती है ना, वो तुम्हें छीननी पड़ती है या हासिल करनी पड़ती है, और उसकी लगती है मेहनत। बात समझ में आ रही है? मैंने अपनी पहली मैकबुक अपने खुद के पैसे से खरीदी थी, 2 जगह टीए करके, ये करके वो करके, तब जाके अपनी पहली मैकबुक ली थी। कोई भी पूछता था ना भाई मैकबुक ले ली, तो उसको पता होता था कि भाई बंदे ने मतलब दिन रात रगड़ी है, तब जाके 45,000 रुपीज आई वॉज एबल टू कलेक्ट, ठीक है। तो और ये जो कोर्सेज, तुम क्या, मेरे क्या कोर्स, भाई सबके कोर्स पायरेट हो रहे हैं, बट बेस्ट पार्ट यही है कि पढ़ कोई नहीं रहा उससे। और ये भी ले लो, चलो कोई भाई मतलब फाइनेंशियली गरीब बच्चा है, बट उसके अंदर ड्राइव भरपूर है कि भाई नहीं, मेरे को पढ़ के मचा देना। वो अगर मेरे कोर्स से फ्री में पढ़ भी ले, बस वो पढ़ के कुछ कर ले, और याद रखे कि भाई मैंने पढ़ाया था। बस याद रखे, किसी को बताया भी ना कि भाई मैंने ऐसे पढ़ा, मेरे को कोई पीआर नहीं चाहिए। याद रखे कभी मतलब कि जिंदगी में, मतलब कि इस बंदे से पढ़ा था तो ये बन गया, बस वो काफी है मेरे लिए। क्योंकि मुझे पता है वो हो गई एक दो बच्चे, बाकी मक्कार है। तुम्हें क्या लगता है 15 लाख लोग इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं? जॉब कहाँ है, क्यों नहीं कर रहे 15 लाख रुपए, 15 लाख लोग जॉब? सोचो, उसका रीजन क्या है? 15 लाख लोगों को स्किल करने के लिए रिसोर्सेज नहीं है? भरपूर रिसोर्सेज है। 15 लाख लोगों को स्किल्ड होने के लिए रिसोर्सेज भरपूर है, फ्री भी पेड भी। पर फ्री पेड से फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता, फर्क पड़ता है विल से। वो तो है ही नहीं ना, वो तो है ही नहीं। जब लीनिएज में चोरी आती है तो स्किल विल ये सब कुछ नहीं होता, चोरी सीखते हैं बच्चे भाई। तो मैं इतना एफर्ट नहीं लेता, ठीक है। तो आ, मैं इतना स्ट्रेस नहीं लेता भाई। जिस दिन नेटफ्लिक्स, हाँ ये और तुम्हें पता है, मेरे को खुद मतलब मैं पहले बहुत इफेक्ट होता था, और मैंने पढ़ा इसके बारे में कि तुम कैसे कोर्स पायरेट करते हो, ये बच्चे कैसे कोर्स पायरेट करते हैं। नाउ आई नो हाउ टू पायरेट अ कोर्स। तुम्हें बात पता है, मैं किसी भी कोर्स को ऐसे स्क्रैप कर सकता हूँ, बट मैं तो क्या ही करूंगा स्क्रैप करके ना। बट मैंने सोचा यार, ये बच्चे इतने स्मार्ट है जिनको मतलब कंप्यूटर ऑन करना, आधे से ज्यादा को कंप्यूटर ऑन करना आता नहीं ढंग से, या ऑन करना भी आता हो तो उनको पता नहीं होगा कि कैसे कंप्यूटर ऑन हो जाता है, वो भी कहीं से उठा उठा के ले आए होंगे। मैंने सोचा यार कि यार इतने स्मार्ट बंदे हैं कि प्लेटफॉर्म से पूरा कोर्स पायरेट कर लेते, कैसे कर लेते हैं? और बैठ के स्क्रीन रिकॉर्डर तो चलाते नहीं होंगे, क्योंकि स्क्रीन रिकॉर्डर जैसी बेसिक चीजें तो हटा ही देते हैं हम लोग। तो मैंने भाई रिसर्च करी, और मैं तुम्हें एफर्ट बताऊं अपना, 15 मिनट के अंदर आई वॉज एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि अच्छा ऐसे पायरेट होते हैं कोर्स। तो जो चीज 15 मिनट के एफर्ट पे अवेलेबल है, करने दो भाई। जब नेटफ्लिक्स सॉल्व कर लेगा तो मैं सॉल्व कर दूंगा, जब नेटफ्लिक्स सॉल्व कर लेगा तो मैं सॉल्व कर दूंगा, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। और जो फाइनेंशियली चैलेंज्ड है वो ले ले भाई, ठीक है, पढ़ ले, पढ़ के कुछ कर ले। कुछ नहीं करना तो क्यों ही परेशान करना है अपने इंटरनेट की बैंडविड्थ को। तो मैं चिल रहता हूँ भाई, डोंट वरी। श्योर सागरिका, आई कैन ऐड अ फ्यू, आई कैन ऐड अ फ्यू, ठीक है। तो डोंट वरी अबाउट पायरेसी एंड एवरीथिंग, मतलब नेटफ्लिक्स नहीं रोक पा रहा भाई। मैं तो वैसे ही इंजीनियर हूँ, इंजीनियर का काम है जो चीज हो रखी है उसके बेसिस पे अपनी जिंदगी बनाना। तो मुझे कभी एक नई प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज लिखते हुए नहीं देखोगे, क्योंकि मेरे को नहीं है शौक। मैंने देख लिया भाई, जो लिखी हुई है वही बहुत बढ़िया है, उसी से सब बन जाएगा। तो जब नेटफ्लिक्स सॉल्व करेगा हम भी कर लेंगे, चिल, एकदम सॉर्टेड लाइफ में। मेरे से पता है बंदे, अगर तुम डायरेक्टली मांग लेंगे ना कि भाई हमें कोर्स पायरेट करके पढ़ना पड़ रहा है, पैसे हमारे पास है नहीं, आप दे दो, मैं वैसे ही दे देता एक आध को तो। बट ठीक है, जिंदगी है, चल रही है, लेट्स कम बैक। यार मेरे को आता था, मैंने कहा ना मैं पहले बहुत इफेक्ट होता था, मैंने रिसर्च करी, पर मुझे ये रियलाइज हो 15 मिनट की रिसर्च में वो चीज फिगर आउट हो गई। और मैं कहता हूँ ये जितने भी बंदे होते हैं ना, जब इनके पास, जो इनके मान लो जैसे, पता क्या होता है, जैसे मोस्टली लोगों के घर में क्या होता है, दो तरह के काम कर रहे होंगे घर वाले, मम्मी पापा मिलके मान लो काम करते हैं, या तो कहीं जॉब कर रहे होंगे या अपना बिजनेस कर रहे होंगे। इन लोगों को ये सोचना चाहिए कि मान लो पापा बिजनेस करते हैं, कपड़े का बिजनेस करते हैं, मैं उनकी दुकान पे जाऊं, कपड़ा पहनूं, कपड़ा यूज करूं, टैग फाड़ूं और वापस कर दूं, और पैसे भी ना दूं, फिर तो कैसा लगेगा? और जो जिनके घर वाले जॉब करते हैं, उनका मालिक उनसे काम करवाए और सैलरी ना दे और ले ऑफ कर दे, कैसा लगेगा? सेम चीज ना, तुम किसी की इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी चुरा रहे हो बिना पैसे दिए, तो कल को तुम्हारे साथ भी होगा, तो चिल है भाई। उनो रिवर्स, उनो रिवर्स, ठीक है भाई। मैंने कहा तो। और मैं तो वैसे ही ना कोड करके, ना पढ़ा के दुनिया बदलना चाहता भी नहीं। मेरे को पता है कि मैं तो दुनिया बदल भी नहीं सकता, ना मैं पढ़ा के दुनिया बदलना चाहता हूँ। मैं खुद भी इसलिए पढ़ाता हूँ क्योंकि मेरे को कुछ ना कुछ नया कोड लिखने में, जो टेक्नोलॉजीज मुझे पसंद है वो पढ़ाने में थोड़ा थ्रिल रहता है। दैट्स इट। तो चिल है भाई, मजे करो। सात्विक, हम लोग थोड़ा बहुत पापा इंटीग्रेट करेंगे, डोंट वरी। हम्म। सर कल की क्लास में से वही कंटिन्यू कर सकता हूँ, थोड़ा दिक्कत आएगी बट आई वुड स्टिल रिकमेंड कि कंटिन्यू कर लो. ओके, let's start, guys. So in the last class we prepared our repository, we prepared our service where we were preparing a bunch of items, and the most interesting part was this model. Can I say that? Bye. Rajat क्या ही बताया जाए. Right, this was the things that we actually did. Okay, cool. So let's start today's session. Okay, now if you carefully see your model, the review model that we have prepared, now one interesting thing that you will notice is that in this review model we have a id property and we have a created at and updated at property. Do you think that these same properties you might need in other tables as well, right? There will be other tables as well. For example, let's say there is a user table. In that user table also probably you will be using the same ID created at and updated at and some other properties of user. For example, email, password, first name, so on and so forth. Then let's say there is a booking, for example, table. In the booking table also you need an ID created at, updated at. These are like bare minimum properties that we want to keep in any table, right? If these are bare minimum properties that we want to keep in any table, how about we try to segregate it out? We try to segregate it out. Why do you want to segregate it out? Otherwise, we might have to write it again and again, again and again without any cause, right? If we can segregate it out in one place, then we'll be mentioning it in just one place and that's it. That's all that we will be expected to do, right? So let's try to do that. Okay, let's try to do that. So what I'm going to do is inside my models, I'm going to create a brand new class called as the, let's say, base model. What is this base model class? This base model class is going to have all the bare minimum properties that any other class will be requiring. Okay, that any other class will be requiring. Okay, so what are those properties? Let's bring them in. So there will be this ID property, then there will be this created at and updated at property. So I'll cut it out and paste it here. Okay, so you can see what I have done is I've created a base class. And from this base class, what I will do is I will extend other class. So what I can do is extends base model. The moment you start extending base model, can you see the error is gone? Why? The error was coming. If you don't extend it from base model, a simple error will come up that you do not have a primary key. See, you do not have a primary key. The moment you extend it from the base model, now the primary key is available from the base model. So the primary key property can come up from the base model. That's where inheritance can come into the picture, right? Inheritance can actually help us in order to solve these kind of issues, right? And now you can see the temporal and last modified, temporal and created at has been moved to base model. So don't you think your entity listener should be now moved from here to here? As simple as that. Okay. And one more thing we should do, we should make this class as an abstract class. Why do you want to make an abstract class? Because you do not want anybody to make an object of the base model, because this is not an entity for us. This is just a code level segregation that we are doing, right? It's not a real life entity for which we want to have objects created for. That's why I'm making it an abstract class. If you have made it an abstract class, you cannot instantiate objects out of it. As simple as that. Okay. This is cool. Okay. And let's see. Now you can see our toString function is throwing an error. What is the error it is throwing? It is throwing the error that created at property is not coming up, right? We are not able to get the created at property. Okay. So what you can do is, instead of making this private, maybe you can make it protected so that all the class that are deriving created at and updated at will be able to access it. You can make it protected. Okay. Now that error will also be gone. And you can see this is a slightly better segregation that we have with us. Okay. This is a slightly better segregation of the code that we have with us. Are you guys able to get the point what I have done here? First of all, tell me that. Are you guys able to get this point? Okay. Now let's do one thing. Let's log into the MySQL console. Okay. And we will say use, 1 second. Okay, we'll use this DB. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll do show tables. We have one table booking review. Let's drop the table. Drop table booking review. Okay, we have dropped the table. Okay. And now what we're going to do is let's try to run the code. Okay, let's try to run the code and let's see what happens. If I run the code here, let's wait for the service to build. Yes, Shubham, you can say I've done kind of like an SRP thing. Okay, so the service is turning up. And can you see this failed? This whole approach actually failed. Now, why is this failing? It is saying that we were not able to create a bean for a defined class. Which class? You can see it has no identifier @entity that the class must declare for ID and embedded ID. Now, what's happening here? The problem that's happening here is that this base model, as of now, what you have done on your Java code level is that you said, I want to do an inheritance. That base model is going to be the parent class and review is going to derive from it. Inheritance is a object-oriented programming concept that exists in object-oriented languages. MySQL doesn't know about it. MySQL doesn't understand how to exactly handle this inheritance, right? And if MySQL doesn't understand, Spring Data JPA gets the responsibility to handle it. But now Spring Data JPA might be also confused. Spring Data JPA can think that, okay, you want every class to be a table. So do you want this base model to be a separate table? Because review is a separate table. Do you want base model to be a separate table? Or do you not want it to be a separate table? What do you want? Like Spring Data JPA is kind of like crying in front of us, saying, please tell me what do you want? I'm not able to understand how do you want this inheritance to be handled. That's where inheritance concepts in Spring Data JPA comes up. If we are representing our object-oriented world in the Java code, it's our responsibility to let Spring Data JPA know that how to map it in the SQL world. So what you can actually do here is, there is a one simple thing that you can do. I'll of course explain it in a moment, but to this base model class, you can give an annotation @mapped superclass. What is this @mapped superclass? For now, let's take it like a black box. It is doing something for us. Just assume for a moment, it is doing something for us. What it is doing, we'll talk about that. But let's try to run the code again. If you carefully see, there are no tables as of now. Let's try to run the code again. And this time, no error happened. And can you see, we were able to create a booking review table. And do you realize one thing? It has an ID property, created at, updated at, content, all of the properties it is having. If you do show tables now, this is what we have. If you describe booking review, can you see? It has all the properties that we wanted. As it is, what we were having earlier, we have now as well. Now, the question that can be coming to your head is, what is this mapped superclass annotation actually doing? Okay. So let me talk about this annotation mapped superclass. Okay. This is one of the annotation that actually helps us to handle inheritance inside Spring Data GPA. Okay. So let's talk about it. Just a second. Handling inheritance in Spring Data JPA. Okay. So the first way to handle inheritance is using an annotation @ mapped superclass. Okay. What is mapped superclass? What mapped superclass annotation will say is that it will say no table for the parent class. No table for the parent class. Can you see? There is no table base model inside your database. Can you see? There is no table base model inside your database. Okay. And apart from this, one table for each child class having its own attributes and parent class attribute. Are you able to get this part? So now what's going to happen is we will give this @ mapped superclass to the parent class. This annotation you are going to give to the parent class. What this is going to do is it is going to ensure that, okay, you do not want a separate table for the parent class because you have just done an inheritance representation. You only want tables for the child classes, and you want child classes to have all the properties of your parent class. That is what mapped superclass is doing, and that's why our code is now absolutely working fine. Are you able to get this point, guys? Are you able to get this point, guys? Is this point making sense? What we have done here? Drop a quick yes or no in the chat. How many of you guys have used or seen mapped superclass anywhere else? How many of you guys have used it anywhere else? Never used, not till now. Okay, okay. But now do you see the class structure? If you see the class structure, doesn't it look relatively better? That now your bare minimum properties that is common across all the tables have been now segregated out to the base model. Can I say that? Yes or no? Can multiple table extend base? Rachel David, that's a Java question. If you have a Java class, can multiple classes extend another class? So I guess that answers your question. Is it necessary to keep parent as abstract as we do not have any extraction methods? Pawan, we are keeping parent as abstract because we do not want anybody by mistake also to create an object of this class. Are you able to get this point? Are you able to get this point? Okay. Abhijit says, I am not very sure. You are not sure about what, Abhijit? I didn't get your point. In a way, we are increasing coupling with all tables necessarily have an updated column. Otherwise, it forces. All the tables necessarily 99% should have an updated @ column. If you do not have an updated @ column, auditing becomes problematic. Tell me a situation like there will be a very few tables, which will be our joint tables, where we probably do not want a updated @ column. Otherwise, 90 to 95% of the time, all the entity tables should have an ID property created at and updated at. Interestingly, if you use ORMs in other languages, for example, Rails, if you use, or let's say you use SQLite kind of like ORMs, they by default give a mechanism in which if you want to configure, then you can configure differently. But by default, it will create a created at and updated at property always inside your tables, because it's a pretty standard practice. Sir, even if it is not abstract, will creation of an object by mistake, will it create a new table in DB? No, it will not create a new table in the DB. It will not create a new table in the DB, but there will be objects lying around here and there, which will be of no use at all. Right? Because, and can you see, you do not have getter setters. So you will not be able to add any ID created at, updated at. All of these properties will be more or less null. So it will be like irrelevant objects altogether. Are you able to get this point? We can have different names for ID property. For example, like there will be one bare minimum ID property, right? That you can have. Like if you want dedicated name for every ID property, specifically, let's say you want in the review table, you want the ID to be called as review ID, then maybe you can have a different ID. Like again, that's a design choice that you can take. Okay. Why is it conventional to add these created and update? What is the use case? Created is number, but why updated? Sagrika, for okay, for example, let's take anything. For example, let's take a Book My Show kind of like application, or let's take our Uber application. In our Uber application, if you update a review or edit a review, you want to know when was it updated. Can I say that? When was it last updated? If you see booking, when you make some changes to the booking, you want to see when was the booking updated, right? Status change, booking status will change. You want to see when the booking status went from pending to booked. Are you able to get this point? Are you able to get this point, guys? Everybody? If we want to use generation type sequence and auto in different JPA for primary in ID and the parent class. Yes, Kaustup, can you do normal overriding in inheritance? Answer it in a Java fashion. Is it a Java question or a Spring Data JPA question? It's a Java question. Can you do overriding? I guess that answers your question. Are you able to get this point? So its getter and setter will be provided by the child classes using Lombok. Yes, because child classes will be inheriting from the base model, right? And if you carefully see, we already have the like creation of this builder. So getter setters are being accessed there, right? Like you can do something like this. You can say system.out.println r.get one second. Let's see what all properties do we have. I guess we have to add the getter setter separately. Add the rate getter, add the rate setters. Now probably you'll be able to access, because otherwise it's protected, right? Yeah, now you have ID and this. So you have to add getter setter separately. You can see now things will be accessible. If I run the code. Yeah, Saurabh, we have added it now. Can you see 2 is getting printed? Can you see 2 is getting printed? So keep this thing in mind. Make sense, guys? So one small thing that you have to keep in mind, in order to make sure that from your clients, you are able to access the ID, updated at and created at. Just access the getter and setter, add the getters and setters in order to make sure that you are able to access it from somewhere else as well. This getter and setter you have to add in the base model. Make sense, everyone? Okay. So this was for mapped superclass. Okay. This is for mapped superclass. So I'll say git add all, git commit -m, added base model class using mapped superclass. Here we go. Yes, you can actually access it, Navina. Like in the child classes, so we have already made it protected, so they are directly accessible. If you will make it private here, then in your child classes also you need to access the getter setters only. But if you have made it protected in your child classes, you can directly access them. I made them protected. Okay, cool. Now this was the situation. This was the situation. सात्विक अभी हम लोग धीरे धीरे अपना कोड मॉडिफाई करेंगे, बाद में बुकिंग वगैरह सब इंटीग्रेट करेंगे. डोंट वरी. Now this was the situation where you wanted to have no table for the parent class and one table each for the child classes. Can you think of a situation where you want a table for the parent class also and you want dedicated table for the child classes also? Anyone? Tell me, guys, tell me the scenario. Tell me the schema. When do you want it? Tell me a schema. When do you want this kind of a situation? Just a second, guys. Account, user account, admin account. But in the account, if I keep account as the parent class, what do you want to store in the account? Can you guys tell me the properties and everything as well? Manager and its subordinates schema maybe. Can we think with respect to the review service that we are building only? Driver and ride, how they are inherited, like how one is a parent and one is a child? I didn't get you. There will be composition, I believe, Abhijit. Review, very good. User review, driver review. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's think about it like this. Let's say, like, again, depends on what business logic you want to implement. What business logic you want to implement. Based on that, these kind of scenarios can actually change, but let's talk about it. Okay. So, just a minute, guys. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else with any ideas? My webcam. Is my video visible? I believe my webcam is not working. 1 second. 1 second, guys. I guess my webcam is not working. Not visible, no? I just realized that. Just a second. Now am I visible? 1 second. Yeah, immediately it happened. Something happened to it. What happened, man? Just a second, guys. It's not working now, no? One second. Just stop detecting like immediately. Something to happened. Da. What happened lately? Just a second. Uh-huh. Sorry guys, something is happening. It's just blinking in front of me. I'm not sure why, what has happened. I'll check it maybe later. Da. Something to definitely happen, but not sure. One thing that I can do is this. Okay, yeah. Now it's working, I guess, right? Is it working now? Okay, cool. Yep. Now let's think of a scenario like this. Now here we had a scenario where we didn't want the parent class to be created. How about a situation like this? If you have used applications like Swiggy or Zomato kind of like applications, when an order is delivered, they ask you for a review. Now that review is on the basic order. And after that, they ask you for a delivery review as well, like delivery partner review, and what do they ask is, they ask you, let's say, kind of like restaurant review as well. Can I say that? Right. Now this order review, they expect around the overall order, food quality and everything, app review and everything. But then they ask for a delivery partner review and a restaurant review as well. Okay. Similar thing can happen in our Uber application as well. For example, let's say you have a normal booking review. Right. This is kind of like overall, how the app, like the overall ride, how it was. Okay. Now from this booking review, we can have a few things associated. That is a driver review. Like if you want to specifically give a driver review, right? And you can have a passenger review. Like even the driver can give a review, right? Even the driver can give a passenger review that how exactly passenger was behaving, were they misbehaving or not, so on and so forth. Okay. Right. This kind of a situation can actually happen. Okay. Now, if you want to handle this situation where you have a booking review, with booking review, you have associated driver review and passenger review. In that case, to handle this kind of a scenario, if you carefully see, we want to have booking review table also created. And then with that booking review, we want to have driver review and passenger review associated. So in this case, this is the parent class. And we want a table for the parent class also. To handle this kind of a situation, we have not one, not two, but actually three strategies that we can actually use here. Okay. We have three strategies that we can use here. First is single table. Second is table per class. And third is joint table. Okay. Somehow to have a reference around this, these are the three different ways in which we can actually handle this inheritance. When I say single table, table per class, and joint table, these are three annotations that Spring Data JPA actually provides us. These are three annotations that Spring Data JPA actually provides us. Okay. So let's start handling this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll drop everything. I'll drop table booking review. One second. Booking review. Okay. And now let's start talking about all of them one by one. First, we have @single table. Now, what is going to happen in a single table? In a single table, what will happen is there is going to be one huge table inside which you will be having all the properties. You will be having all the properties of the parent, all properties of the parent, and correspondingly all the properties of different child. So let's say there is child class 1 C1 and child class 2 C2. All of their properties are going to actually exist inside this single table. Okay. So let's start looking at this. Okay. So now what I can do is I can create a brand new Java class. Let's call it as, let's say, driver review. Okay. Now inside our review table, which was a booking review, this was content and rating. Okay. Now here, what we are going to have this to be extending from review. Can I say that? And I can actually show you how can you use single table. Like always, again, as I mentioned, we should try to refer documentations. So @ single table inheritance JPA. Okay. You can see inheritance mapping. So you can see there is mapped superclass, single table, joint table, table per class. These three we are now going to talk about. So let's start with this. So this is mapped superclass. This is a single table. Can you see? The single table strategy creates one table for each class in the hierarchy. Okay. And this is the default strategy also. Can you see? If you don't specify any strategy, this is the default strategy. Also, if you want to use these strategies like mapped superclass and everything, you have this @ mapped superclass. And the remaining strategies you have to use like this. @ inheritance strategy is equals to inheritance type dot single table. Okay. So you can see that here. If you want to use joint table, one second, see inheritance strategy @ joint. Okay. So these are the different strategies that you have. Let's start talking about them. Okay. Now let's say you have a product class. You can see this is a product class. And then there is a book and a pen class. Both are extending from product. Now what you can do is you can mark the parent as inheritance type single table. Now what will happen is there will be one product table created in which there will be columns of my product, there will be columns of book, and there will be columns of pen. Let's try it out ourselves as well. Okay. So first of all, we are extending from review. That is good. I'll say @ entity so that we can manage this entity. Let's say we have @ getters, @ setters. Okay. And let's say @ table. Oh, sorry, for now we don't need the table because it's not going to create a separate table altogether. And let's say we are going to have a property private string driver review comment. Okay, let's say we have one property driver review comment. Okay, cool. And let's create one more class. Passenger review. Okay. I'll copy everything from here, paste it here, and make it extends from review. And then we can have a property private string passenger review content. Okay. And passenger review content. Okay. Let's say we have this. Let's say we have something like this. Now what I can do is I can go to the review table and mark this table inheritance @ inheritance. Okay. Now there are different strategies to implement this inheritance. So there is a strategy property, my bad, which we will say inheritance type as single table. Okay, I'll call inheritance type as single table. Now let's see what happens. If I run the code, let's see if it fails or is everything going to be fine. You can see everything is fine. Did you carefully analyze that we have just created one booking review table? And this time, if you carefully see, if I go up, can you see driver review comment properties there in this table? Okay. And now if I do show tables, this is booking review table. And if I describe booking review, Can you see? The properties of the child tables are now part of the same parent table only. So there is only one table that has been created, and all the properties of the child table are also part of the parent table altogether. As simple as that. One quick note here also, in the review property, or sorry, review table, we can make these properties protected. We can make these properties protected, right? Otherwise, we already have getter setters. So using the getter setters, we will be able to access the properties of the parent class. No problem there. Okay. That is something that you have to keep in mind. Shubham, are you able to get this point? I hope that answers your question. Now, can you see, guys, what happened is you created one end-to-end table, only one single table for multiple classes, for multiple different classes. You made one single table, one giant table, you can say. This creates one giant table. And inside that table, all of the properties of the child class is present, right? Now, there are a lot of problems here. What is the problem? How about for a booking, the driver didn't give a comment for the passenger? In that case, the passenger review column is going to be empty. Can I say that? Can I say that? So there will be wastage of space. And interestingly, let's say if I drop the table again, if let's say I want to make this column nullable is equals to false. Okay. What I'm saying is that I want to make this column nullable is equals to false, that this column can never be null. Now, if you try to run the code, let's see what happens. I've dropped the table, so it's going to recreate the table, or at least try. And can you see this failed? This failed because in single table, you cannot enforce not null constraint on the columns, because they are bound to have situations where there can be null. When I say not null or nullable is equals to false, that we say that this column can never be null. If this column can never be null, then user always has to pass this property, right? So single table say that we cannot enforce that in the single table, that I cannot make sure, or I cannot enforce the fact that this particular column is always going to be not null. That's why in a single table, not null constraint, or this @ column nullable is equals to false, is not applicable. Okay. Not null constraint is not applicable. As simple as that. That's when you want to use single table. Now, what is the use of single table? Now, this is what? A problem. We discussed two problems. One is space. Second is not having not null constraint applicable. But there must be some benefit also. What is the benefit? If you want to get the data of the parent and all of the child, you can just get it in one single query. You don't have to use any kind of joins or anything in order to fetch the query. So in that case, the queries becomes relatively simpler, right? Although the table becomes overall bulky. That is single table inheritance type for you guys. Are you able to get this point? Drop a quick yes or no in the chat, everyone. Is this point making sense? And this is inheritance we are talking about. Okay. Now, let's go to the next particular type that we have. What is the next type? Now, apart from single table, the next type that we have is table per class. Table per class. Now, what is table per class? In table per class, what you have is everything is same. Everything is same as mapped superclass, but with only one change, that there will be a table for the parent class also. Everything same as mapped superclass, except the fact that parent also has a dedicated table parent also has a dedicated table altogether. Okay, parent also has a dedicated table altogether, right? And child will have all properties of parent. Child will be having all the properties of the parent. So let me show you the syntax. So if you go down, table per class, can you see? So let's say there is a vehicle table. You can set up the inheritance as table per class. And now you can have a car table, or let's say a bike table that is inheriting from this vehicle. Now, what's going to happen? There will be a dedicated vehicle table that will also be created. Car table will also be created, and bike table will also be created. For example, in our case, let's say I drop booking review again. And this time, instead of single table, I choose the inheritance type as table per class. You can see I came to the parent and I want table per class. And one more thing, let's remove this not label. Okay. And let's run the code. Okay. So this is failing. Let's see why. Da -da -da. One second. Okay, so for driver review, it is not able to find the identity column. Let us see why. So we are extending review. That is good. And we are getting it from here. Okay, got it. I got the point, what they are saying. Let's see how can we resolve it. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so in this case, the ID generation, what we have to do is generation type table. The strategy of ID generation we have to change. Currently, it is sequential right now, but what is happening? We have multiple tables and they have a long inheritance chain. So what they're expecting us to do is, they're expecting us to change this generation type to table. Okay. Now let's run it again. This is for the ID because currently we have ID as our auto increment, right? But how auto increment will work in multiple tables, it is not able to figure out. And now you can see what happened. We have 3 tables that has been created. Can I say that? We have 3 tables created. You can do show tables. You can see there are 3 tables that has been created. There is a dedicated sequence table for each table that we will be having. And if we describe each table, booking review, describe passenger review, and let's say describe driver review. Now, can you see all of the tables have the ID created at, updated at, ID created at, updated at, ID created at, updated at, as well as the parent table booking review had content rating. Here also we have content rating. Here also we have content rating. Right. So what this is going to do is, this is going to actually prepare dedicated table for parent as well as child. Okay. Dedicated parent for dedicated table for our parent as well as our child. Okay. And one more interesting thing that will happen is, when we will try to fetch the object, when we'll try to actually fetch the object of the parent class. For example, we say review.findAll. What will happen is, it will not only fetch us all the reviews from the parent table, it will also fetch all the reviews of the driver and the passenger as well. Right? So this is going to actually fetch all the properties of the parent as well as child class. If we want to access just the parent, then also it will bring us all the properties of the child class. That's what table per class is actually going to do. But now what the problem with table per class is that there is a lot of redundant information that you are storing. Content rating. Too much data redundancy is coming into the picture. That is not good for us. That is definitely not good for us. Okay. That eventually leads us to the final property, that is join table. Now, before we discuss about join table, I want to show you what happens if I do join table. Okay. So first of all, I'll say drop booking review, drop driver review. One second. Show tables. Okay. I guess we have to, let's start with this drop table, passenger review, drop table, driver review, drop table, booking review. Okay, so all the tables have been dropped. And now I'll also do drop table, hibernate sequences. Okay, if I do show tables, everything is empty. Okay, now what's going to happen is we have table per class. We will change table per class to the third format, that is joined. This is join table. Now this is going to be interesting. If I run this code, now what will happen is this is still going to create 3 tables for you. Can you see? This is still going to create 3 tables for you. If you do show tables, there are still 3 tables. But if you do describe booking review, this is booking review. If you do describe driver review, can you see that data is not present in a redundant fashion here? Can I say that? And if I say describe passenger review, here also the content and the rating property is actually not present here. Can I say that? Okay. So we are not storing redundant data for our content and rating again and again in multiple tables. They have just their own set of properties coming into the picture, right? So you can read about it here. Join table. So using this strategy, each class in the hierarchy is mapped to its table. So every class, parent, child, everyone has its table. The only column that repeatedly appears in the table is the identifier, which will be used for joining them when needed. So here you can see there is a animal class, then there is a pet class. Both the tables will be having an animal ID column. The primary key of pet entity also has a foreign key constraint to the primary key of the parent entity. To customize the column, we can add the primary key join column annotation. Okay. So what you can actually do is, if you carefully see, currently we have this ID property. This ID will be same as the ID of the booking review. This ID is same as the ID of the booking review by default, because this ID is now going to not only act as your primary key, but it will also act as your foreign key. But if you want the foreign key to be separate, for example, if you want your primary key to be separate, you can use this annotation @ primary key column. So let's try to use this. Okay. So again, just to revise what happened, we have single classes for parent and child separate. There is no data redundancy. That means the properties of the parent is not present in the child. Child has an ID property, which is also acting as its primary key and the foreign key. Okay. Now here, if you want the primary key to be separate than the foreign key, then in the child tables, what you can do is you can add this annotation, primary key join column. Okay. And we can call the primary key as driver review ID. Okay. Let's call it like this. Now let's again drop all the tables. Oh, sorry. You can see I cannot drop booking review because there is a foreign key constraint on the driver review table. So I have to first drop the driver review table. Then I have to drop the passenger review table. And now I can drop the booking review table. Now you can see no tables are present, show tables. No tables are present. And now if I will run the code, again, 3 tables have been created. You can see now if you do describe booking review, sorry, spelling mistake. and you do describe driver review. And can you see describe passenger review? Describe passenger review. Here you can see. Now, can you see the primary key and the foreign key? The name has now been customized. Passenger review still has the name as ID, but here we have customized our name as driver review ID, kind of like that. Okay. So that's what join table is actually going to do for you. Content rating is different. Content rating is different in both driver and passenger, right? Then what is the redundancy? No, Navina, that was not different. Can you see the classes? There is no content and rating in driver review. There is no content and rating in the passenger review. The content and rating is for the booking only. It's the booking data only. Are you able to get this point? So that's why it is getting repeated everywhere. Can you please show the table schema? This is the table schema in front of you. Are you able to get this point, guys? How exactly inheritance is actually working for your classes, everyone? Rajat Garg is saying, sir, but why do we want this? Why we cannot have three, like, why cannot you not have an enum property that have three types, driver, booking, and passenger? As yes, this is the foreign key and the primary key both. That's why if you will try to delete booking review, Abhijit, if you do drop table booking review, can you see it is not allowing us to drop it because there is a foreign key constraint. Okay. So there is a very interesting question from Rajat. Sir, let's say, sir, why we cannot have an enum that can identify passenger, driver, and booking? Okay. Rachel, the advantage of single table is that you have one giant table. So if you want to get data from one giant table, you do not need to use joins. Joins are expensive, right? Okay. Now, Rajat, you tell me, what if you have a situation like this? That when you completed a booking, when the driver completed a booking, now passenger gets an option to actually fill the review. So passenger can, like by default, passenger gets one thing, that is the rating. Okay. If I complete my Uber booking, I get a rating option. Can I say that? Okay. Now, when passenger just filled the rating, this rating is for what? This rating is for the booking. Can I say that? Okay. Now there can be three situations from here. One, nothing more happened. Nothing more happened. Second situation is the driver gave a review comment for passenger. Now the driver has added a review comment for the passenger. Okay. And passenger added a review comment for driver. Okay. Now, how will you handle this? Are you saying you will create three different rows in your table? One row will be having the rating given by the passenger and no comment. Then one row rating given by the passenger, no comment of the passenger and driver review rating. And then one more row of rating given by the passenger and the comment given by the passenger. Do you think this rating is getting repeated again and again? Because all these three comments are belonging to the same booking. Can I say that? All these three comments are belonging to the same booking. Yes or no? How will you store the rating of the booking in a different booking review row, in a different driver review row, and a different passenger review row? Satvik, I'm assuming that driver cannot give rating to a passenger. If the driver can give rating to a passenger, then of course one more column is there. Are you able to get this point? Guys, are you able to understand? Like, I want to have a situation like if you want to store an enum, that for every review you have a type, that this is a booking review, this is a passenger review, this is a driver review. Now, at one point of time, for one completed ride booking, you can have all three. Yes or no? You can have all three. Right? Okay. Now, how will you store? Probably in your table, there will be a booking ID, BID. Okay. Then there will be, let's say, a comment. There will be a rating. And there will be a type. Can I say that? Now, let's say booking ID is 1, comment is SS, rating is 5, and type is booking comment. Now, let's say passenger has to add a driver review. So booking ID is same one, comment is driver review DR. Now, we do not have a specific driver rating. Whatever is the booking rating gets allocated to the driver rating. Okay. So I need to copy this detail here. Yes or no? I will be copying this detail here. And the type is going to be a driver rating. Can I say that? And then driver also gives a passenger rating. In this case, booking ID will be 1. Comment is, let's say, some passenger review. Let's say now somebody said that you want to have passenger rating also. So this rating is going to be a passenger rating. Driver rated the passenger 3. And then the type is going to be a passenger rating. Now, what is actually happening here? What is actually happening here? This rating property is being repeated here. Can I say that? Can I say that? So this can lead to data redundancy. And this column is now no more a primary key. How will you define the primary key? Now, primary key is going to be actually a composite key. The booking ID and the type is going to together uniquely identify a row. Can I say that? Instead of this, what I suggested is have a booking table, or let's say have a booking review table. Here you have a booking ID, a review comment, and a rating. Okay. Then have 2 more tables. Driver review, passenger review. Driver review will be given by passenger. Passenger review will be given by driver. Here you can have for driver review. Now driver's rating is same as booking rating. So all you need is the driver review comment and the booking ID, which is going to be a foreign key. It is going to be a foreign key here, which is a primary key here. And here in the passenger, you can have a booking ID, you can have a comment, and let's say driver cannot even give a comment for the passenger. They can only rate the passenger. Okay. Let's say they can only rate the passenger. So here we can have a passenger rating, P rating. That's it. So this is also going to be referred to this. Now at any point of time, if you want to get a collective data, you can just get the data from join of all of these tables. So data redundancy is reduced to a good limit, and the data is normalized as well. Can I say that? So again, it's a choice. You want data redundancy, you can keep it like this, no problem. Okay. It's again a design choice. Like we have a simple situation that our enum can have only 3 types. What if our enum has 15 types? What if our enum has 15 types? Then what? Make sense? Let's say we have individual rating. I'm just giving a hypothetical scenario, Pawan, just to explain the concept that let's say this is the design of our classes. Got it, guys? So in object-oriented programming, what do we have? We have 2 main concepts. One is inheritance and one is composition. Inheritance we have talked about, that in order to achieve inheritance, you have mapped superclass. Then you have table per class. You have single table and you have join table. Okay. Now what we are going to do is let's have a quick break. Post break, we'll start talking about composition. That how can we achieve composition using Spring Data GPA? Is this point making sense to everyone? Okay, let's have a quick break and then we are going to probably come back. Okay, let's go freshen up and then we are going to come back. Let's have a 15-minute break. Okay, is everyone back? Okay. Sagrika, I have a better setup in my machine. Like it gives me previous set of recommendation. For example, you can see it gives me autocomplete and everything. But in my, I was using my skill console. That's why I was trying to do up and down. But yeah, I can use that. Am I audible to everyone? Okay, cool. So now we know about inheritance, right? So now we know how to set up inheritance in different formats inside our, I would say, code repo. Okay. So what we can actually do is, let's see. For example, now what I believe we should do is we should not have a separate driver review. Whatever is the booking review, I will keep that as the driver review and driver comment and everything only. And we can have a separate passenger review altogether. Passenger review is going to be optional. If the driver puts a passenger review, then there is going to be a passenger review that is going to come up. Makes sense, everyone? Is this point making sense? So what I can do is probably we can just drop the driver review class. This was just for because demonstration. So I can delete the driver review class. Okay. And inside the passenger review content, we can have one more property, private string passenger rating. We can have a passenger rating property coming up as well. Okay. So passenger can give view and driver can only give comment. Driver didn't have access to give rating. Somnath, now driver also have access to rating. मतलब हम लोग example देख रहे थे सोमनाथ, like to understand things. डाल दिया मैंने. ठीक लग रहा है? सोमनाथ, आइडियली तो ड्राइवर कैन ऑल्सो गिव पैसेंजर रेटिंग. उबर में तो पैसेंजर रेटिंग एग्जिस्ट करती है. मेक सेंस सोमनाथ? हाँ मतलब अगेन तुम्हारा प्रोडक्ट है, मान लो तुम ओला का कुछ नया वर्जन बना रहे हो, तुम चाहते हो कि ड्राइवर पैसेंजर को कभी कोई रेटिंग ना दे पाए, बस कमेंट दे पाए. यू कैन हैव इट लाइक दैट. ओके. इट्स लाइक द ये वाला डिसीजन. अब अगेन पैसेंजर के पास रेटिंग होनी चाहिए या नहीं होनी चाहिए, ये डिसीजन ना इंजीनियर के हाथ में नहीं होगा. ये डिसीजन होगा प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर के हाथ में. अगर प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर्स और हायर अथॉरिटीज चाहेंगी कि यार मेरे को मतलब ऐसा फीचर हमारी ऐप में होना चाहिए कि पैसेंजर की भी रेटिंग लगे, तो फिर पैसेंजर की रेटिंग होगी. हमारा काम एज एन एंज क्या होगा कि अच्छा उन्होंने बोला है कि रेटिंग होना चाहिए तो होना चाहिए. दैट्स काइंड ऑफ थिंग. ओके. So we can just remove this import. We don't need this here. Okay. And let's see. What I can do is I can have at the rate table property. Okay. And or maybe we can keep the passenger name as passenger underscore review only. I don't have much of a problem with that. Okay. What I would like to do is let's call this one also as booking underscore review. Let's change it to booking underscore review. Okay. And we'll keep the inheritance type as join. Okay. So that can be coming up there. And let's see anything else that we need. For now, this looks good. For now, this looks good. We have a base model as well. I'll just quickly drop the tables. I'll say show tables. Or okay. Also, interestingly, what you can actually do is instead of coming to your console again and again, and then dropping your table and manipulating your table or querying on your tables, an interesting thing that you can actually do is here, if you have probably this is an ultimate edition feature. If you do not have an ultimate edition, then maybe you do not have it. You can see there is a database option. You can open this option and you can see it opens a dialog box in front of you. You can click on plus new. And what you can do is you can click on a data source. And the data source you can select as MySQL. If you select data source as MySQL, it is going to give you a pop-up that, okay, which database you want to connect. So I want to connect to my localhost database only. And authentication, you have to provide that my username is root, password is this mac @ local 12345. Okay. And the database name you have to provide. So I guess show databases. I guess the database name that we have is UberDB local. Okay. And if I click on test connection, you can see this looks succeeded. That means it is able to connect. We'll click on apply and we'll click on OK. The moment you apply and click OK, now you can see there is a SQL console that will come up directly here. There is a SQL console that will come up directly here. And now you can actually write queries here directly. Okay. You can do show tables and it will also give you a recommendation, which is slightly faster. We can select and run it. And you can see it is going to give you the output here. Okay. So you can like start executing your queries and everything already directly here. Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay, cool. And apart from that, you can see on the right hand side, if you want to open this console, you can open this console. Right. On the right hand side, if you carefully see, there is this option of user DB local. That's our database that we connected. If you expand, can you see you are able to see all the tables? Now what you can do is you can go to any table, right click on it and just drop the table directly from here. Okay. Cool. And this will drop the table. Can you see? So this is slightly more easy. Again, you have just some small cool features. Or you could have directly dropped it from the command line here as well, or the terminal, whatever you need. Drop. Okay. And you can see now no more tables are there. If I now do show tables and run it, you can see there are no tables coming up as it is. And now if I run my service, you can see this time it created 2 tables. Now here, what you can do is you can come up here and you can refresh. If you refresh, you can see now this has created a bunch of tables for you. Okay. And in fact, you can select multiple tables, drop all of them together, click on OK, and it's going to drop all of them together. Okay. 1 second, we have to close the server. So if I drop again, okay. Oh, sorry. So now there is a foreign key constraint. So first let's go drop this. And now then probably you can drop both of them. Okay, you can see we dropped both of them. So in the base model, let's now try to do something like this. This ID generation type you can keep as, let's say, identity. Now let's try to execute the code and see if it works for us or not. You can see everything worked fine because now there are no dedicated tables. The ID property is actually the foreign key only, nothing more, nothing less. And if I go and refresh again, you can see we have the tables coming up here. How cool is that? So directly from IntelliJ also, you can manipulate your database and everything coming up. Make sense, everyone? Is this point making sense to everyone? Identity is for auto increment only. Pawan Patil. If you carefully see, when I made it identity, ID is now auto increment only, Pawan Patil. Make sense, everyone? Drop a quick yes or no. Sorry, there's a lag on my machine. Okay, cool. Let's come back. Any questions as of now, guys? Any questions till now from anyone? Anything that you want to talk about or something? Any questions? Or we can start with composition. ये शुभम फुल फ्लैश उबर ऐप बना रहे होंगे, टेंशन ले रहे हो, बट उबर ऐप फुल फ्लैश बनाने के लिए पहले कॉन्सेप्ट भी पढ़ोगे ना. अभी कॉन्सेप्ट में चाहता तो एक रैंडम टू डू ऐप में करा सकता था, बट वी आर टेकिंग वन सर्विस ऑफ आवर ओन एप्लीकेशन, बिल्डिंग दैट सर्विस, then we'll just apply these concept directly in other services. Can we make any column in passenger review content as not nullable? Since we have, yes, now you can do that. So now if I drop this, and if you go to passenger review @column nullable is equals to false, if now you execute it, although I do not want to do that because again, or yeah, now we should do it. You can see now it works, right? We should do it technically. So one quick note, everyone, that now because we are using join table, now the child tables can have non-nullable properties, right? So every time if the driver is giving a passenger review, they have to, let's say, give your review rating, and let's say they always have to give the passenger rating also. So let's make it strict. Let's make it strict here. Okay. So one second. Okay. If you run the code, you can see this time, if you go here and do show tables, and if you describe passenger review, you can see these are all non-null properties. No, that means non-null properties. Can we also see UI representation on MySQL tool? Yes, there is a tool called as MySQL Workbench. That's the counterpart for MongoDB Compass that you have. Is that one making sense? This tool, MySQL Workbench, is the corresponding counterpart that you have. Okay. So let's see. Just a minute. One second, guys. On Zoom, is there a lag? Let's see if there is a lag. Is my video lagging, guys? Is there a lag in the video, or is it good now? No? Okay, cool. Now let's come back. Okay. So now we have talked about inheritance, right? We have talked about inheritance. I would like to commit all of this code up till here. Okay. And I'll say get add all, git commit -m, added passenger review model as join table, git push. Okay. Now the second property that we have to talk about is composition. Now, how composition will probably look like. Okay. So for example, let's say now a user will be having a lot of bookings, and for every booking, they will be having a rating. Corresponding to that, every driver will be having a lot of reviews. Okay. So a driver has many reviews. Can I say that? A driver will be having a lot of reviews altogether, right? Now, if the driver has many reviews, if the driver overall has many reviews, then we can say that this actually makes a one-to-many relationship. Like in SQL, you have relationships, right? What are the different type of relationship that SQL supports? 1:1, 1:many, and many::many. Okay. This is 1:1, 1:many, many::many. And you can say like the opposite counterpart for 1:many is what? Many::one. Okay. These are the relationship types that actually SQL supports. Now, let's say if you are representing it in the form of an object-oriented scenario, then probably you will be having a driver class. Inside the driver class, you will be having a list of reviews. Can I say that? Reviews. So If in a driver class, you have a list of reviews, what does it represent? That a driver has many reviews. Can I say that? So if you have to represent this same scenario, one to many kind of a scenario in an object oriented way, what do? You use something like a list. Similarly, now a booking is going to have a review, right? So let's say if there is a class booking, which is going to store the booking details like the booking date, booking amount, so on and so forth. Here you can have a booking review. Here you can have a booking review. And what will be the type of the booking review? Review. Can I say that? Now, every booking has one review. If you see booking and review, it's a one-to-one relationship. It's a one-to-one relationship that is going to exist between a booking and a review, right? So now, if you carefully see the SQL relationships that you have, in order to represent SQL relationship, what we are doing? We are trying to do something like a composition. Can I say that? Let's see the definition for composition. Composition versus inheritance. Okay. Composition versus inheritance. Inheritance means is a relationship. See, if you go inheritance, let's go up. See, inheritance is a relationship, whereas composition has a relationship. Now just think about it. Driver has reviews. Booking has a review. So don't you think whenever you add another class as a class property of a given class, now here you can see you have added review as a class property for booking. Here you have added review as a class property for list of reviews as a class property for driver. This is what? You are doing composition. Can I say that? See, let's see the example here. So for example, you have a job. A person has a job, right? Because now job is present as a data member for the person class. If it would have been inheritance, animal is the class, cat is also an animal. So cat is an animal, whereas person has a job. So your SQL relationship, one-to-one, many-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. These are what? These are a representation of composition. And how do you represent composition? By adding one class as the data member of another class. So now that's what you want to talk about. That if inheritance is there, then mapped superclass, joint table, single table, all of those strategies are there. But now if you want to represent SQL relationships between two different entities, booking is a different entity, driver is a different entity, review is a different entity. How do you represent relationship between these entities is something that we need to talk about. How many of you guys are able to get this point? Drop a quick yes or no in the chat. Is this point making sense? What is composition? What is inheritance, guys? And why this SQL relationship is actually coming into the picture? There is the comment how it knows content and rating. Navina, I guess we answered that question already, right? I already answered your question. The same question I've already answered. Always QL relationship comes under composition. I didn't get your comment, Samnath. Okay. Can you please elaborate? Just allow me a minute, guys. I'll bring my water bottle. Just give me a second. Okay, cool. So now what we want to do is we want to see each and individual type of relationships that we have. Okay. So we have 4 relationships: one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many. Okay. So I'm asking whenever there will be SQL relationship, we need to link it one entity to another, then composition will be there. Yes, Somnath. Because again, SQL is a world of Booleans and I would say Boolean algebra kind of stuff. Object-oriented programming is not Boolean algebra kind of stuff. So you have to create that mapping or the bridge between them. Are you able to get this point? Okay. Cool. So probably let's start. Let's start, guys. Okay. Now what we are going to do, we are going to set up a bunch of classes using which we will be able to actually see the scenario, how things are going to work. Okay. So I'll close this up. I'll close this up. I'll open this here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new class, booking. Okay. Now how the relationship between booking and review looks like. You can say one booking has one review and a review belongs to a booking. Okay. A review belongs to a particular booking altogether. Okay. Now let's create this booking class. How do we create this booking class? First of all, we are going to call it as @entity. If you have @entity, you need ID, right? So ID we can bring from extends base model. This is good. This is good. Okay. Now what we can have is, let's say there is a enum booking type, something we have, let's say as an enum. Okay. And or let's have few more properties. For example, let's say we have a private date start time of the booking. Okay. We have a start time of the booking. Then let's say what we have, end time of the booking. End time. So if you have a start time of the booking and end time of a booking, then you will be able to calculate the total time of the booking. Yes or no? Okay. Then let's say you can have something like private, let's say long total distance. Okay. You can keep a total distance property altogether, right? Then maybe what you can do is you can keep something like private booking status. Now what booking status can be? Booking status can be an enum that currently the same booking. Like when do you want to keep enum? Because when you have stages, when you have states, right? So let's say initially a booking can be pending, then it can be cancelled, it can be approved. There can be different booking status altogether. So let's create this booking status. So if you hover on this, you click on more actions, it will ask you to create an enum booking status. I'll create an enum booking status. You can see we have an enum booking status. Now booking status can be anything. You can have scheduled, you can have cancelled, you can have cab arrived, you can have, let's say, assigning driver. Okay. You can have in ride, you can have completed, and so on. Okay. You can see these can be different booking status. So I can have a booking status altogether. Now there is an interesting thing that Spring Data JP actually provides. Now, whenever you have an enum, there are two ways to handle an enum. One way to handle an enum inside your database is to store the enum as a string. Another way to handle an enum is to store it as a number, because you know, right? Enums are mapped to numbers as well. I believe everybody knows about that. Okay, basic enums. So now what Spring Data JP says, that Spring Data JP gives you a choice that when you want this class to be replicated in the form of your table, do you want this to be handled as a number or do you want to be handled as a string? I believe for simpler cases, we should always handle it as strings because it's more readable. But with numbers, the storage is slightly more better and the query can be a slightly bit faster. But for better data representation, that is always a higher priority. We should have string. Now, how do you do that? There is an annotation called as enumerated. When you do @enumerated, it automatically signifies SQL that this is going to be an enum. This booking status is going to be an enum. And then you can give it a property value as enumeration type. Can you see there are two enumeration types, string or ordinal? Ordinal means you want to store this enum in your database as a number. String means you want to store this enum in your database as a corresponding string. How many of you guys are able to get this point? Drop a quick yes or no in the chat. Somnath, no. You cannot say it's an array. It's kind of like a mapping. Please read about enums. Enum is present in most of the languages. Okay. So just to revise, to signify in your SQL that this booking status is not just any property, it's a specific enum. You give it at the rate enumerated annotation. Now this at the rate enumerated annotation gives you a facility that if you want to store this enum as numbers, you can store that as numbers, or if you want to store it as a string, you can store it as a string. So what you can do is you can set the value as enum type dot string. If you store as number, how will it store? Will it store with index number? Okay, so enum in Java enums. Okay. Now, if you enums in Java numerics, can you see this? Somnath? So जैसे नॉर्मल इनम हैंडल होंगे, पहले इनम को 0 वैल्यू मिलेगी, दूसरे को 1, तीसरे को 2, चौथे को 3. So for example, in our case, scheduled will be 0, cancelled will be 1, cab arrived will be 2. Then if the status of the booking you will store as cab arrived, then the enum will become 2. It's not an index. I don't want to say it as an index. You can say it's a mapping. No, if you do not use enumerated, it will not take it as enumerated. Let's try it out. Okay. So let's do one thing, guys. Let's do one thing. Let's say I do not give this at the rate enumerated type. Let's have these 4 properties here, and let's run the code and see what is the table that is going to get created. If I run the code, it's again all about experimentation, that what is going to happen. Okay. See, so it created a table booking, and inside the booking table, can you see the booking status is tiny int, okay, where booking status is between 0 to 5. Okay. Now, why it took a tiny int? Because the booking status is already an enum class. Cool. Now let's say, now you type at the rate enumerated as value, enumeration type as string. Now if you run the code again, can you see it says alter table? It says alter table, modify booking. Now it's a dedicated enum with all of these properties. So from tiny int, this has been changed to an enum. Okay. If you now change it to ordinal, enum type dot ordinal, and run it again, alter table again to back to tiny int. Okay. So the default value for an enum is going to be your tiny int, which is going to store this in the form of integers. And how does it detect? How does it detect that booking status should be a tiny int enum? Because this is an enum class. But if you want to store it like a proper enum string, then in that case, you have to use enum type dot string, and then you can actually run your code again. Make sense, guys? Okay. Navina, does that answer your question? At the rate enumerated type is for selecting the type only. Spring detect as enum automatically. Yes, because this booking status is already an enum class, right, Akash? One thing to note always that if you have kept a property as an enum class, Spring will automatically detect that this is an enum. But by default, it will keep the enum as numbers. If you want to keep enum as string, then you have to override this value property by using the at the rate enumerated annotation altogether. Okay. And for example, if now you go and do show tables, and if you do describe booking, okay, you can see end time is a date time, created at is a date time, so on and so forth. But what's going to happen? It's not going to be managed directly. So what you can actually do is you can add the temporal types here. Okay. What you can actually do is you can add an annotation at the rate temporal, that what kind of a date time value it is. This is going to be value is equals to temporal type dot date, because now you need to tell Spring that, okay, Here we are not going to store a timestamp or a time. We are going to just store a date. If now you run the code, you can see you are modifying booking to become a date. Now, can you see this column has been modified to become a date? Okay. Previously, it was what? It was date time. So now if you do describe booking, now it has been updated to a date. So that's how you are going to tell your SQL that, okay, now it's not a random date time or a time, it's a date property. Same thing here. And for example, let's see, for a write, what do we want to keep? We want to keep a date or date time. We want to keep a date time, I guess. We want to keep a date time, I guess. Okay. And you don't need to specifically give date time. Date time will be, I guess, by default already present. So timestamp. Okay. I guess this should be a timestamp. This should be a timestamp. Default also it's a timestamp, but let's specifically write it. Okay. Cool. Okay. So now we have a bunch of details inside our booking table as well. Now let's try to do some composition. Currently, I'm not associating any user with the booking. Slowly and steadily, we will introduce our models. But for now, what now you can do is every booking has a review. Every booking is going to have a review. So you're going to say private review, and I will call it as driver review. Okay. And let's see. You can see this basic type should not be a persistence entity. So what you have to do is, now can you see this is already throwing you an error that now you're trying to do a composition which is of not a normal primitive type or a regular non-primitive type. You're trying to actually associate an entity as a composition. So whenever you try to associate any entity as a real life entity, as your table entity, as your composition, what you do is, let's call it instead of driver review, let's call it a review only. Okay. What do you need to do is you need to tell that, okay, now this composition is going to be replicated in your table. How it should be replicated, what kind of relationship it should be. So in our case, a booking has one review and a review belongs to a booking. So it's a 1-to-1 mapping. The moment I add an annotation called as 1-to-1, can you see the error is actually gone? As simple as that, right? So now you have a 1-to-1 mapping with the corresponding review. Okay. And let's add the getter setters here. @ getter, @ setter. Okay. Then let's add @ builder, @ no args constructor, @ all args constructor. Okay. So now our builder and getter setters are also activated. Okay. So here you can see we have defined a 1-to-1 relationship between booking and review. Okay. Now, if you run the code, what is going to happen is it's going to alter the booking table and it's going to add a column review ID. Can you see? Okay. And it's going to add a foreign key constraint as well. That means now if you do describe booking, there is a review ID property that is coming up. And this is not a normal ID. It is a foreign key. This is a foreign key, as well as this is going to be unique. One review will be having one booking. There cannot be multiple bookings with the same review. That's why there is, you can see there is a unique key constraint as well. This is going to be unique. And you can see they have added that constraint. See, they have added a unique key constraint as well automatically, because in a 1-to-1 relationship, you want the relationship to be unique. One booking has one review and the same review belongs to that booking only. That's it. They don't belong to multiple things altogether. That's how you can set up a 1-to-1 relationship between your, that's how you can set up the 1-to-1 relationship from your Java world to the SQL world. Review ID and ID will be same. Okay. So if you carefully see here, this review ID is the foreign key. This review ID is same as if you do describe booking review. Once again, show tables, booking underscore review. Okay. Now the ID property of the booking review table is the same as this review ID, which is a foreign key here. If you want, you can change the name here by using the @ column property and everything. Those names you can actually change. So you can read about the one-to-one mapping, one-to-one mapping JPA. Okay. And you can see what you can do is you can say one-to-one. Okay. This cascade and everything I'll talk about. Okay. And you can see you can give one-to-one kind of like this. There's a mapped by property also that comes up here. Let's talk about that mapped by property. So here, if you give mapped by as review, and let's do one thing. Okay. One second. So we'll come to mapped by later. One second. We'll come to mapped by later. I guess with mapped by, I need to teach you about one-to-many mapping as well. So we'll come to mapped by later, right? We do not want to keep review here. Okay. And let's come back. Okay. So with this mapped by property, we'll talk about in a moment. Let's avoid it as of now. Okay. So just one-to-one, let's focus on. So with one-to-one, what is going to happen is there is going to be a one-to-one relationship that we will actually set up. Okay. Now, interestingly, what can happen is you need to actually sometimes set up cascade types as well. So what is cascade type? Let's talk about that. So for example, let's say you created a review. Okay. So if I go to my review service here, so you can see we are creating a review. Okay. Now let's do one thing. Let's create a booking. Okay. So booking B is equals to booking dot builder. Okay. And one second, booking dot builder dot. Now you can see you can add some properties like, let's say, end time as new date. Okay. Something like the same thing you can add as a start time and everything as well. And then this review that you created, let's create it above. Okay. Let's keep the review here. Okay. And then you can add dot review as R. Okay. And then you can call a dot build. Okay. I'm not sure what is happening to the indentation, but okay, we'll live with that. Okay. So now what we have done is I have done a review R and a booking B. Okay. So this review create object has been created. Booking object has been created. But these two objects has been created in your Java memory. Okay. Now, when I do review repository dot save R, this is going to save my review. How do I save my booking? In order to save the booking, you need to have a booking repository coming into the picture, right? Can I say that, everyone? We only add one class as a property in another, only in case of composition, or is it any other concept? It's a composition concept, actually. Like, these are like fundamental OOPS concepts. Okay. Guys, can I say, in order to save the bookings, what do we need? We need a booking repository. Now let's create a booking repository altogether as well. So what I'll do is I'll create a new Java class, booking repository. Okay. And what we are going to do is we are going to mark it as @repository. And we are going to extend from JPA repository, where the type is going to be booking and the primary key type is long. Okay. And this should be an interface. Okay. As simple as that. Now, what you can actually do is you can say, let's bring booking repository. Okay, you can see it has automatically added a booking repository and did a constructor injection for us. That is good. I can say booking repository dot save B. Booking repository dot save B. What it is going to do, it is going to save a booking repository for me. Now, do you think booking repository depends on a review and a review depends on booking repository? What should be created first? Should we create a review first or should we create a booking repository first? Because if you carefully see, inside your booking review, you have all of these properties. And inside your this booking property, you have all of these properties. Now, booking review is going to be dependent on what? It is going to be dependent on, if you do describe booking review and if you do describe booking. Now, your booking is going to be dependent on review ID. Can I say that? Okay. So here, this property can be null. Can you see this property can be null? So booking can exist without review. So what you can actually do is, let's say you save booking repository dot save B. Let's try to do it first and run it. Okay. Let's see what happens. Now you can see it actually threw an error. What is the error? The error that is coming up is that unsaved transient instance, save the transient instance before flushing. So what's happening is that this is saying that, okay, inside the booking object, you have added the review property here. Can I say that? This review object you have added in the builder of the booking object. But when you are translating this object-oriented world to the SQL world, review doesn't already exist, right? So whenever you have relationships between multiple tables, you need to also manage one thing, that when is one thing going to be created, right? Like, should review be created first? For example, now let's say if I remove review from here, and run the code, you will see things are going to probably work absolutely fine. If you run the code, you can see everything worked fine. Why everything worked fine? Because see, you are creating a review object independently. You are creating a booking object independently. No connection between the two objects. You said booking repository dot save. That means you are now persisting it in the SQL. Then you say review repository dot save. Now you are persisting this review inside the SQL. Can I say that? And now both of them are independent. No problem at all. If you go and say select star from booking, you can see we have a record. But problem comes into the picture when, while creating the booking, you said that my review is going to be R. Now what has happened? Now you said that, okay, I want to create a booking object, and while creation of that object, I want to set the review property as R. That is good. In object-oriented world, it's all good. Why? See, in order to prepare booking, you need to have the R object already prepared. R object is already prepared, no problem. But here, when you are converting this to the SQL world, in the SQL world, your booking repository is trying to actually create a brand new booking. Using which object? Using the B object. Your booking repository is trying to create a brand new booking in your table using the B object. And B object is depending on this R object. But is this R object already present in the table? Is the R object already present in the table of reviews? No. This review object is not yet present in the table because I have not done review repository.save. Now what I have to do is, like, first of all, let's run this much code. If I run this code, this will throw an error because you are trying to save the table data of booking without saving the review, which you have connected here. You can see it throws an error. So one way that you can think about is, sir, how about I first save the review inside the review table, then save the booking inside the booking table. Let's run it. And if you go, everything is now working. Why? Because now you properly, first of all, persisted the review. Now your booking object depends on a review. Your booking object depends on a review. So what is happening? Your review is already now present in the table. That review ID is being fetched and added in the booking. That's why if you do select star from booking, this time you have a review ID 9. And if you do select star from booking review, you can see you have this booking review 9 coming up. Can I say that? Okay. Now, what you can actually do is, instead of managing all of this yourself, now here you have to manage everything. Like, oh, you have to figure out, okay, booking is dependent on review. So first save the review, then save the booking. If you want to avoid it, what you can actually do is, you can actually give a cascade property. What is cascade? So this same cascading exists in databases as well. For example, let's say there is a review. Let's say you are working in a social media company and there is a user who made a lot of posts. Now the user deleted their account. Now, don't you think if the user deleted their account, all of their posts should also be deleted? Because now they're of no use to us. Can I say that? So what you can do, you can connect the post and the user table, that if the user table record gets deleted, everything related to user in the post table will also be deleted. That's what a cascade connection or a cascading mechanism. Same thing here, that, okay, I want a review to be associated to a booking. So I want review to be created first and then booking to be created. What I can do is, here I can say cascade type dot persist. What is cascade type dot persist? Persist says that, okay, you wanted your review to be saved first because it is dependent, right? You want your review to be saved first because it was dependent. So you don't have to do it manually. You don't have to do it manually. If you run the code, you can see everything worked fine. Now, automatically what Spring has done is, Spring now knows that, oh, your booking and reviews can be correlated to each other. There can be a case that while creating a booking, at the same time, you are creating the review only. One situation was you create booking separately, you create review separately, and then connect them. That's okay. But now the situation is that you are saying that, oh, booking, when it is getting created, a review associated to it can also be created at the same time. Now, when I'm saving the booking, the associated, I would say, review should also be saved. Now, if you carefully go and see, select start from booking review. Sorry, select start from booking. Can you see? You have a brand new booking associated with 11. And if you do booking review, you have a brand new review associated with 11. Now, the best part is, now you can set up cascade types in different ways. For example, one cascade type you can say persist. Another cascade type you can say as remove. What does remove says? Remove says that, okay, if a booking is deleted, all the associated reviews should also be deleted. So let's try it out. So I'll comment all of this. I will say booking B is equals to booking repository dot find by ID. So I'll get the booking by ID. What is the ID? Let's say booking ID is 6. Okay. So I got the booking B, okay, with ID 6, and this should be a long. Okay. And let's see. ID must not be null. Okay, this is an optional. This returns an optional. So I will say optional. Okay. Why? Because why this gives you an optional? Optional is a Java class. It's a Java util class. Because let's say if you gave an ID which doesn't exist, then booking will be what? Empty, right? So now what you can do is, if B dot is present, if booking is present, that means you were able to find a booking of ID 6. What we are going to do is, we are going to say booking repository dot delete B. What we are going to do is we are going to delete the entity B. Okay, let's see why this throws an error. B dot get, I guess we have to do B dot get. Okay, cool. Now let's try to run the code. Let's try to run the code. Carefully see. Previously, booking ID 6 is associated with review ID 11, right? Now, if I run the code, now can you see? It is deleting the booking and it is deleting from booking review as well. That means if you do select star from booking, can you see booking with ID 6 is gone? And if you do select star from booking review, the booking review with ID 11 is gone. That means if you delete a booking, all the associated reviews are also automatically deleted. That's the power of Cascade. So cascade.persist is going to make sure that all the dependent objects are created at the time of creation of the parent object. Remove means if one associated object is removed, all the corresponding associations are also removed. And there are other cascade types as well. Like I can actually show you. Cascade type in Spring Boot. So you can see there are multiple types. All means if you do all, then all of these cascade types are going to be attached. Persist is for saving. Remove is for removing. What is merge? If two objects are getting merged, their association will also get merged. Right? You can read about them. The merge operation copies the state of the given object onto the persistent object with the same identifier. Okay. Then there is remove. Remove we already saw. Detach. The detach operation removes the entity from the persistent context. When we use detach, the child entity will also get removed from the persistent context. You can see it's going to work kind of like remove only. And you can see there are a lot of other cascade type. There is a refresh cascade type as well. When we use this operation, the child entity also get reloaded. For example, let's say if I reload my booking, then the review will also be automatically reloaded. Let's say there is change in a booking and review. If I reload my booking in the object, my review is also going to be also reloaded. So there are different cascade types that you can actually attach in your corresponding composition that you have attached in your different models. And that was one-to-one mapping that we have created between booking and review. Are you guys able to get this point? And cascading exists in SQL also, just FYI. So when you are actually creating the tables, no, as far as I remember, you can see, you can set the properties like on, delete, cascade and everything. So you can see whenever you have a foreign key reference, you can give on, delete, cascade. So what will happen if you delete an enrollment corresponding to that course is also going to, if you delete a course, all of its corresponding enrollment are also going to be deleted. Things like that. So it's a SQL thing, just FYI. Yes, Somnath. Make sense, everyone? Now, can you see composition being mapped as a relationship in SQL? Composition in your object-oriented world is your relationship in your SQL world. Can I say that? So whenever we have one-to-one mapping, whenever we have at any point of time, you have a one-to-one mapping. In SQL one-to-one mapping, what happens is, let's say if you have a one-to-one mapping between a table A and B, then any one table has ID of another table. Any one table can have ID of another table. For example, in our case, booking table has a review ID, right? It can be vice versa as well. That review table has a booking ID. So in one-to-one association, it doesn't matter. Any of the two tables can have the ID of the other table. The mapping still exists. The other type of mapping that we have is one-to-many, which has its counterpart as many-to-one. So let's say what can be one-to-many? So a driver has many reviews. This is one to many. Can I say that? A driver has many reviews. Okay. And one review will belong to a driver. Driver has many reviews and review belongs to a driver. Okay. Review belongs to a driver. Now, in this case, whenever you have a one-to-many relationship, then what happens is that the many side, let's say our review side, this review side will be having a driver ID property, which is going to be a foreign key of the driver table inside the review table. So in one-to-one, any of the table can have the foreign key. In one-to-many, the many side has the foreign key. The many side always has the corresponding foreign key inside your association. Okay. So we can see that in action as well. So for example, let's commit this code as of now. Added booking associated to the page. Okay. Now, let's say we have a driver class. Java class driver. Okay. Let's call it as an entity. Let's call it getter, setter, builder, and for builder, no args constructor, all args constructor, and extend the driver from base model as well. Okay, cool. Now let's try to think about a few common properties about driver. Simple properties we can maybe think about. Let's say a driver has a name. Private string name. Okay, driver has a corresponding name. Then let's say, for example, driver has a license, driver license details. So private string license number. That's a driver detail. Okay, cool. Then you can say license number is going to be a unique property. Every driver has a unique license. So what you can do is this column you can keep as nullable is equals to false, and you can say unique is equals to true. Every driver has a unique license number. Okay. Apart from that, driver ID will be already coming up from the base model. Okay. There will be some vehicle and everything also attached. We'll bring the vehicle and everything into the picture. But let's have our one-to-many association. I want to have our one-to-many association as driver has many, let's say, reviews. Or let's say driver has many bookings. Okay. Let's say driver has many booking. So what we will do is we are going to say, let's say, private list of bookings is equals to new array list. Now, can you see it is already throwing us an error that now you are not giving the column as a normal primitive or something. You are actually trying to refer the column as a reference to another table. So that means here, what do you have to mention? You have to mention @1-to-many. So there is an annotation 1-to-many. Now, what is the meaning of 1-to-many? 1-to-many says that what is one? Driver is the one part. So driver has many bookings. A driver has many bookings and a booking belongs to a driver. Can I say that? A booking actually belongs to a driver. So in that case, whenever you have a booking, you will be having a driver associated. This time, not only in one table, but in the other table, you have to also go and make a change. So every booking will be having private driver. And now again, this column is not a normal primitive. So what you can say is @many-to-one. So if one side is 1-to-many, other side is many-to-one, right? That a booking has one driver. A booking has one driver. Can I say that? Okay. A booking has one driver. And you can see here, driver has many bookings. If I run this code, let's see what happens. Can you see a lot of things happened? First of all, there is a table, alter table booking. Inside the booking table, can you see there is a driver ID that has been added? So if I do describe booking, can you see there is a driver ID that has been added? Okay. Then you created a table driver. And can you see inside the driver table, if you say describe driver, can you see there is no reference of booking? There is no reference of booking inside the driver. And that's what I also mentioned, right? That the many side has the foreign key. The one side doesn't have the foreign key. So the driver is not having the foreign key. The booking is having the foreign key driver ID. Okay. Then what it is doing is it is creating one more table, driver bookings. Now this is problematic. If you carefully see, it has created one more table, driver bookings. That's not what I wanted. If you do describe driver booking, can you see it has created this table? And this is a fundamental flaw with Spring Data JPA, that if you by default just mention one to many and many to one, then it is not able to understand association properly. It gets confused between one to many and many to many association. How to resolve it, I'll tell you in a moment. But for now, you can understand that this table is a mistake. Then some constraints it is adding. So you can see there is a license number gets the unique key constraint. Then you can see a few other foreign key constraints are coming up, and that's it. So you can see it is able to set up the association, but it is not setting up the association correctly, right? Somnath says, sir, why one to one for booking and driver, many to one for booking and driver? Somnath, just think about it. If a driver has many booking, so we say one to many, तो opposite side पे क्या बोलेंगे? A booking has one driver, so many bookings will be having one driver. So just think about it. Many for this booking, so many booking has one driver. Can I say that? Okay. So now, how do we resolve this issue? First of all, what I can actually do is, just to be quick, I can drop the DB, drop database copy. 1 second. Oh, okay. What happened? My SQL hanged or what? This is the DB name. Okay, I have deleted the DB altogether. So we'll create a new DB. So create database, because there are a lot of tables. I cannot go and delete everyone's one by one. Okay. So now in your one to many here, inside your one to many here, now you have to add one property. Okay. Now you are saying that driver has many bookings. Now you have to tell that, okay, if driver has many bookings, this relationship is represented by which property on the booking side. So can you see on the booking side, we have a property driver. So we will say that, because now just think about it. Between two tables, just for a moment, just think about it. Let's say we were not having a separate driver and a separate passenger table. For a moment, let's say we have a user table and the user has an enum, passenger and driver. Just think about it for a moment, that you do not have a dedicated driver table. You have a user table, and there you have a enum of a passenger and a driver. Okay. For a moment, just think about it. Now, if let's say you say, inside your user class, that @one to many private list of bookings. Okay. And then you have a booking class. where you have @many to 1. This is your booking class, @many to 1. And you say private user driver. Okay. Now every booking will be associated to a driver, and every booking will be associated to a passenger also. @many to 1 private user passenger. Can I say that? This is when the situation is like you have one user table where using the enum you identify whether the user is a passenger or a driver. And every booking will be having a passenger also. Every booking will be having a driver also. Now just think about it. If you say one to many private bookings, this one to many of booking is for what? Is one passenger has many bookings or one driver has many bookings? How does this one line will be able to figure out, are you referring to a one driver has many bookings or are you referring to a one passenger has many bookings? How will you identify this? Just think about it. This is a problem, right? Because now you have a single table user. You have a single table user, individual table user. So you can say that booking belongs to a driver, booking belongs to a passenger, but both of them are individually users only, right? And inside the user table, when you say private list of booking, this means you are saying a user has many bookings, but which user? Are you referring to the passenger has many bookings? Or are you referring to driver has many bookings? Spring is not able to identify this. This can be a conflicting situation. So here you have to tell that, okay, in the booking table, whether you are referring to the driver property or you are referring to the passenger property for this relationship. How do you tell that? You say mapped by, there's a mapped by property, let's say passenger. Now, whatever is the name here, exact name you have to use here as well. Exact name you have to use here as well, right? And let's say another one, @one to many mapped by, let's say, driver, private list of booking, debooking. Debooking means driver bookings. Okay. Now it is explicitly mentioned that this particular relationship is referring to a passenger and this particular relationship is referring to a driver. So whatever is the property name here, you mention the same property name here. Now let's see once more. Okay. So what is the property name here? Driver. So say that, oh, this one to many relationship is actually mapped by the driver property on the other side. The driver property on the other side. If now you run the code, it's going to create all the tables and everything. You can see. And now if I do show tables, once again, let's use this DB. If I do show tables, can you see this table, which was our driver bookings? This driver bookings has not been created. Can I say that? And now everything is fine. If you do describe booking, it has a driver ID. If you do describe driver, it doesn't have any kind of a booking ID altogether. And you can see now things are working absolutely fine. Yes or no? Now things are actually working absolutely fine, right? And same thing you could have done for the passenger also, right? Same thing you could have done for a passenger also. For example, let's say you have now a passenger class. Let's say this is again an entity. This is having a builder, getter, setter, no args constructor, all args constructor, extends base model. Okay. Let's say every passenger has a name, private spring name. Okay. And one passenger has a lot of bookings. So private list of bookings is equals to new array list. Now again, this is a list, right? So let's import a list. Import a list. And now let's just quickly check the list of bookings, right? And one second. Technically, it should throw an error here. This extends base model. Okay. Let's try to run the code. Let's not give any annotation. Let's try to run the code. Okay. And now it should technically try to create a passenger table. Let's see what happens. Can you see this failed? Because now it is not able to understand how exactly this booking is expected to be mapped. So what I will say is that I will say @ one-to-many, that one passenger has many bookings and one booking will be belonging to a passenger. Private passenger. And here this passenger will become many-to-one, that many bookings will be having the same passenger. Now just think about it. Inside your passenger table, you have a one-to-many relationship with bookings. Now this one-to-many relationship is for this driver or this passenger. How does it identify? What you can do is you can give a mapped by. You can give a mapped by and you can call it as passenger. Now if you run the code, you can see a brand new table has been created, passenger. And inside the booking table, a passenger ID has been added. So if you do show tables, you can see passenger table is there. And if you do describe booking, there is a passenger ID coming up. Now, interestingly, let's say, let's close everything. Okay. Let's say I change this from passenger to something ABCD, mapped by ABCD. Can you see IntelliJ is itself throwing us an error that there is no attribute ABCD in your booking class. But the moment you change this passenger to ABCD, now this error is gone. Can I say that? So the property name in the many class should be same as the mapped by property that you are mentioning here. Otherwise, it won't be able to understand which particular composition I'm referring to. Inside booking, there can be many compositions to the same type. Which composition we are actually looking at? Because passenger also has many booking, driver also has many booking. So which one of these is actually referring to which one of the list? You have to give by mapped by. So let's bring it back to passenger and let's bring it back to passenger coming up. So I'll push this code. Added one-to-many relation between booking and driver, comma, booking and passenger. There we go. Make sense, guys? Sir, here we are having different entity as driver and passenger. Then why we write mapped code? We are not storing driver and passenger as user enum in our code. That user enum example was for an example scenario, Somnath. That why do you need mapped by in the first place? कि किस तरह की सिचुएशन में अगर मैप्ड बाय नहीं होगा तो स्प्रिंग को कंफ्यूजन होगा, इसलिए स्प्रिंग डेटा जेपी हर सिचुएशन में मैप्ड बाय एक्सपेक्ट करता है. फर्स्ट थिंग. सेकंड थिंग, हम लोग पैसेंजर और ड्राइवर की अलग अलग टेबल ही बनाने वाले हैं. वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू मेक सेम टेबल फॉर देम. Do we have anything other than mapped by in many to one side? Not that I know of that you need to use as of now. Probably you can add some cascading and everything here, but once we get the use case, probably we can just Google it. No, sir, आप बोले अगर user enum में दोनों entity रहेगा, then mapped will be used. Okay, guys, one thing. The example that I mentioned here, where user has enum property, this was to show that what is the worst case where Spring will get confused. Due to this situation, Spring expects you to put mapped by for every one-to-many relationship. Doesn't matter whether you have this situation or not. If you have a one-to-many relationship, you have to give mapped by. Otherwise, it will start creating another join table. What is a join table? I'll talk about that in the next class. Okay. So this was the reason why you have it. It's kind of like सड़क पे accident होते हैं, इसलिए ट्रैफिक रूल बनाए हैं। अब हर सड़क पे एक्सीडेंट नहीं होते ना, बट ट्रैफिक रूल हर जगह फॉलो करना पड़ता है। बस समझ में आ रही है? हर सड़क पे एक्सीडेंट तो होते हैं, जिस जगह सड़क पे गाड़ी नहीं है वहां एक्सीडेंट क्यों होगा? बट ट्रैफिक रूल तो मैं उस सड़क पे भी फॉलो करना है। रात को अगर कोई सड़क पे नहीं है और रेड लाइट हो गई, तो भी तुम रेड लाइट जंप नहीं कर सकते ना। बट रेड लाइट जंप करने का रूल तो खाली उस सिचुएशन में बनाए जब हर तरफ से गाड़ी आ रही हो, तो तुम्हें रेड लाइट जंप नहीं करनी है। पूरी सड़क खाली है, तुम्हें पता है 1 घंटे तक कोई नहीं आएगा, क्या तुम तब जंप कर सकते हो? नहीं, तब भी तुम्हें जंप नहीं करना है। इट्स काइंड ऑफ लाइक दैट। दिस इज द वर्स्ट केस सिचुएशन वेयर you have multiple mappings and it is getting confused which mapping is referring to what, right? Due to this mapped by property exists, you have to use it everywhere. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं, वो बस एक सिचुएशन था टू एक्सप्लेन दैट व्हाट इज द वर्स्ट केस वेयर स्प्रिंग विल गेट कंफ्यूज्ड। मेक सेंस एवरीवन? आर you able to understand one to one and one to many relationship? And do you see your project being slowly and steadily built up? Sir, these tables like user table will be used by other services too. From HLD of the project, user will be a separate service. Multiple service can interact with the same database. So in this database, we have a user table. Multiple services can interact with the same database altogether. Abhijit. Open as in show you the properties. As far as I know, yes, Rachel. Otherwise, what it will do, it will create another extra table that you do not need. Everything will work, but there will be an extra table that you do not need as of now. Sadiq, do you want me to do what? Like describe passenger? This is him. Abhijit, does that answer your question? So Abhijit is saying, sir, in the HLD, you showed that user table will be used by an authentication service also. So in microservices architecture, multiple services can interact with the same database, and one service can interact with more than one database. That can exist. Keep that thing in mind. Make sense, guys? Make sense, guys? Everybody, drop a quick question in the chat. Sir, created at and updated at will only be present in booking table. No, it's present everywhere, right? Booking also has created at, updated at. Passenger also has created at, because passenger is a different entity. Booking is a different entity. Now there is no inheritance. Those if you we have given mapped superclass and everything for inheritance. This is composition. Composition means two entities separately exist, but they have a relationship in between. बट सर वाई विल देयर बी नो रिटर्न? सोमनाथ, मतलब खुद सोचो, मैं आज ऊबर पे रजिस्टर करता हूँ 13 अप्रैल 11 PM पे, और कल मैं एक बुकिंग करता हूँ 14 अप्रैल 11 AM पे। बुकिंग का क्रिएटेड एट क्या होगा सोमनाथ? बुकिंग का क्रिएटेड एट क्या होगा? और मेरे पैसे, मैं पैसेंजर की तरह लॉग इन करूंगा, साइन अप करूंगा, तो मेरा क्रिएटेड एट क्या होगा? सेम। सोमनाथ, आज 13 अप्रैल है, 11 PM, मैंने आज साइन अप किया, तो यूजर कब बना? आज बना। कल बुकिंग करूंगा मैं सुबह 11 बजे, 14 अप्रैल 11 AM, तो बुकिंग का क्रिएटेड एट क्या बना? और फिर परसों एक और बुकिंग करूंगा, उसका क्रिएटेड एट क्या बना? मल्टीपल बुकिंग्स है ना गाइस, ऑलवेज। ओके, सो इन बैकएंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग एंटिटीज इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। क्रिएटेड एट ऑफ एवरी एंटिटी इज इंडिपेंडेंट। आज मैं अकाउंट क्रिएट करूं, कल मैं बुकिंग करूं, और उस बुकिंग का रिव्यू मैं परसों डालूं, तीनों का क्रिएटेड एट एक दूसरे से रिलेटेड ही नहीं है। दीज आर इंडिविजुअल प्रॉपर्टीज। हाँ, in the next class we will talk about something called as a join table. You have already seen a glimpse of join table, but I'll talk about more formally around it. In those join tables, we do not need created at and updated at. That I will show you. हमेशा रियल लाइफ ऐप के पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचो कि अच्छा मैं बुकिंग क्रिएट करूंगा तो क्रिएटेड एट तो बुकिंग का क्रिएशन टाइम है, लेकिन मैं जब साइन अप करूंगा तो क्रिएटेड एट पैसेंजर के क्रिएशन का टाइम। मेक सेंस गाइस? नथिंग सात्विक, until or unless you are a 10-year experienced developer. जब तक जरूरत ना पड़े मत करो. What is the significance of array list of booking in passenger? Like we are considering all bookings like till now. Cost of, how do you, so we say a driver has many bookings. Many bookings means let's say there are 10 bookings. Yes or no, Costo? How do you store 10 data pointers together? What do you need in programming for that? Contiguous memory allocation, that can be array, array list, anything, right? Array list we are storing because it's flexible. That's why you have an array list here. Guys, so a lot of you guys must be coming from the world of MERN stack. In MERN stack, you do not have to give type. If you are not using TypeScript, you are using JavaScript, and you would have, let's say you would be creating the same class. Then here you would be just saying bookings. That's it. You would not be saying array list of bookings or something like that. You will just say bookings. Can I say that? So there you do not have to specify the type and everything prior. The type is on the go identified. But here we have to specifically give the type because now there can be multiple bookings. Like business point, yes, that one driver has many bookings, right? So maybe you want to fetch the booking of all the bookings of a particular driver. Got it? Rachel? Okay. So again, the same thing I'll tell you. Rachel, just think about a situation where you have a user table and you have a booking table. Okay. A booking belongs to a user via two relationships. Via two relationships. One is a driver user and a passenger user. Can I say that? Inside your user table. Now, if a booking belongs to a driver and a booking belongs to a passenger, that means one user can have many bookings. Now, depending on whether this user is a driver or this user is a passenger, bookings will be different. So now you have a private list of bookings and private list of debookings. Debookings is driver bookings. So if the user is a driver, then these bookings will be filled. If the user is a normal passenger, then instead of this, these bookings will be filled. Can I say that? Now for a moment, think about this mapped by is not present here. How does Spring know that this booking association is related to driver or passenger? Like when we are going to store the booking, like when we are going to create a booking entity for this particular set of user, whether it has to store the driver ID or the passenger ID, or in simple terms, this one-to-many relationship is related to this driver or this passenger. How does Spring knows? Are you able to get this point? Yes, Pawan, you can say that in simple terms. So you can read about mapped by. You can read more about mapped by. That's why I was escaping mapped by at that point of time. So mapped by one-to-many. So let's go with the Stack Overflow article. The mapped by the attribute mapped by indicates that entity on this side is the inverse relationship and owner resides in the other entity. Are you able to get this point? So here you can see who is the owner of these bookings. Driver is the owner of these bookings. Who is the owner of these bookings? Passenger is the owner of this booking. And where do I mention that? We mentioned that in these property names, right? So you can read this article. Join column we are going to talk about in the next class, but you can read this article here. Make sense, guys? And you can also read this article from Builder. So join column mapped by. Once we have defined the owning side of the relationship, Hibernate already has the information it needs to map the relationship. To make the association bidirectional, we will have to define the referencing side, the inverse mapping. That's where we use mapped by. So when we fetch the data from MySQL for all booking for driver, then we use array list of booking. Just wanted to know the use case of booking passenger, bookings driver. Kaustubh, do you want to come on call? Do you want to come on call? Sure.
Hello.
Hi, Kaustubh.
Hey, hi, Sam. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So my concern was I got like one-to-many relationship that I got like MySQL pointer and I released like what is significant, like when are we going to use that bookings and everything?
So let's say inside your application, you are a passenger, I'm a driver. Inside your application, you want to see all of your past bookings. Okay. Of course, please don't mute yourself. Actually, sorry. Please don't mute. Let's stop.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So let's say you are a passenger. You want to see all of your past bookings. So now, if you have defined a list of bookings inside your passenger class, what you will be able to do? You will be able to do passenger.getBooking. Get
Right.
bookings. And then you'll be able to fetch all of the bookings all together. Are you able to get this point?
Yes.
That's the scenario. And when you will be fetching bookings, that will be a list. Because maybe you want to submit receipt in your company of all the cab rides that you took for the company. Then you need to see all of your previous bookings, right?
Yes.
Make sense, guys?
Yeah. So if my understanding is correct, then this array list is like we can compare with the rows of the bookings, right?
Yes, you are correct. You are correct. You are correct.
Okay. Just that, like, I want to compare like MySQL and the JP.
Yeah. That's like because when you will do a join, you will get multiple rows of the booking for the same passenger, right?
Yeah. That was the question only. Yeah. I got it now. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaustubh. Ankar is saying technically driver and passenger should be in user auth service. So how do we map with an attribute of the service in review service? Ankar, okay. Microservice is the logical part of your code where you are going to actually write the logic. Multiple microservices can interact with the same database, Ankar. Are you able to get this point? Now, if we need the user entity in an auth service as well, there also we can just create the same to same class. That's it. Are you able to get this point? We can have the same to same class coming up there as well. Okay. Ankan, are you able to get this point? This is one way to handle this. Another way to handle it is you make a common library. You make a common library where you mention all the models at a common place, and then you just import it from there. That is also one way in which you can actually solve this so that you do not have to code the models again and again for every single microservice. Ankan Roy Chaudhary. Okay. Like for example, like we are already out of time. Just remind me in another class. I'll give you one example where to create models, we do not need to make Java classes. We need to make something else. And for that, for every microservice, we made the same to same thing again and again. I'll just remind me, I'll give you the reference to this, both of these approaches in real life scenarios. Here you are including booking object in passengers, so and so forth. What if I include booking IDs? Satvik, for that, don't worry. We have provisions for that. Like we will be able to write complex JPL queries and everything. We'll come to that. Don't worry. Okay. Cool. So did you guys understood most of the things that we discussed today, guys? You can see the complexity of the overall projects and the Spring part is increasing day by day. Few people who already worked on Spring also came to know about a lot of new things today. And that should be the agenda always that we are going to keep. That even if you know about a few things around Spring, we introduce brand new concepts that are going to be useful for your other cases as well. Right. So in the next class, we are going to continue our discussion on composition, that how you're going to represent composition of many to many relationship. That's going to be interesting. And you can see this review service is a accumulation of all the things that we need. That's why I took this review service. So this is working out well. I would highly recommend you guys to please go through the whole code, whatever models and everything I'm doing, try to code it yourself, play around with it. See if you turn off one property, what happens? If you turn off one annotation, what happens? The more you play, the better understanding you get. This is not electrical engineering that if you will join one wire somewhere else, a whole transformer is going to blast. It's a simple piece of code. If you make a mistake, it's just going to not work. Nothing is going to blast. In that case, you can do experiments. That's the best part of software. So do we use this type of dev interaction in our project? Yes, Navina. We are slowly and steadily heading towards our project implementation only. Don't worry. Got it? That being, sir, is there an annotation Java? An interview does ask particular annotation use case? No, generally interview will not ask you a lot of annotation use cases. In service-based companies, probably people can ask. In product-based companies, people do not ask too much framework-related stuff. Don't worry. Okay. That being said, let's wrap today's session here, guys. We are going to meet soon in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. Have a really lovely weekend ahead and keep coding, everyone.